I want to frame the discussion today to state clearly that the Muleskinners Club does not endorse candidates during primary campaigns. So despite an impression you may have received from the County Democrats newsletter, that is not the role of Muleskinners. Our role is to provide a forum for equal access to all candidates running as Democrats on the ballot. And that's the spirit in which we're going to conduct the forum today. And that's the spirit that has been the rule for the Muleskinners for decades. Order on the ballot. Okay, we'll do it in ballot order then. 2-minute introduction. 2-minute introduction.
Good afternoon. This is exactly as I thought it would be. My name is Renee Hoagenson, and I am running for U.S. House of Representatives to represent Missouri's 4th Congressional District in Washington, D.C. I come to you. I've lived in Columbia for the last 33 years. I'm a Missouri native. I've never lived anywhere else. I've lived in Missouri's 4th Congressional over 40 years now, having lived in Warrensburg, Cass County, and then, as I said, Columbia. Brought my children into the world at Boone and University, and now my children are actually going through Columbia Public and the University of Missouri, which is my alma mater. So just to give you a little bit of background about my professional experience and my my service experience, which I think is important in this race. I'm a small business owner. I started Columbia Marketplace magazine, which many of you hopefully are still receiving in your mailbox. I started that. I started Jeff City magazine. Was funded for an angel investment project with the Centennial Investors, and started a magazine in Sedalia called Showcase Sedalia, where I worked for the last 7 years before selling it this last February in order to focus on becoming your next Congresswoman. Having run this campaign for about 1.5 years now, I can tell you that in order to get the job done, I had to really focus on the task at hand. And I came to this race for many different reasons, part of which is my roots in the community, my understanding about the various different people who live here, partly out of a sense of service. I'm a Rotarian. I've been in service for the last 25 years of my life. I deeply believe in service, and I believe this would be really the highest form of service I could render is to participate. So I just got the stop sign. So more to come. All right. Thank you.
I'm Hallie Thompson, and I am a plant scientist that studies how corn responds to drought. I study that by looking at the root systems. I also have roots here in Missouri. Not the same kind of biological roots, but I was a child in Montauk County, lived on a farm with my family, and I learned a lot about agriculture as a kid, all the many things you can learn from that, including persistence, which I think is extremely important in the way that we govern. I also had the good luck of going to a school in High Point that was one of the many small public schools that we have here in Missouri. And I had some wonderful teachers there, but we're starting to lose that in many of these rural communities. And another thing from my childhood that is a super value of mine is healthcare. Whenever I was 14 years old, my family lost their coverage. Well, just my mom lost her coverage with insurance because of a pre-existing condition. And so that is a long time value of mine and something that has impacted my life. From then until now, those are values. As a graduate student at the University of Missouri, we lost our insurance, and we had to work to retain that insurance and to be sure that future graduate students were able to have that, and that's important for all workers. I also study agriculture and maintain that as a value, work to figure out how farmers can grow crops better, more efficiently, and into the future how they can do that. And of course, public education is something that I have as a huge value. Having worked in advocacy for higher education on the national level as the Director of Legislative Affairs for a national nonprofit in 2015 and 16, that is something that I know inside and out, and I think is important for Missouri's 4th. And so that is why I'm here. That is why I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives.
What are specific reasons why you believe that you can beat the incumbent?
So in order to take on the incumbent, who is Vicki Hartzler, you have to know a little bit about her first. She serves on the Agriculture Committee. She serves on the Armed Services Committee. And so being able to talk to things that she's done or that she hasn't done in her service and the 8 years that she's been in office will be extremely important. I am a plant biologist from the 4th Congressional District, and so one of my strengths is talking about the Farm Bill, talking about the challenges that we have in plant biology and how we start to address those agricultural challenges going forward. And so that's going to be extremely important whenever we are talking with people that live in the 4th Congressional District. One of the other important things we're going to have to be able to do in this general election is get folks out to vote. Get them excited, get them registered, and get people out to vote that haven't traditionally voted consistently, because the numbers are not going to be easy. There aren't that many people out there in some of these counties voting Democratic, but that's not because they don't exist. And so one of the things that I will do in the general election is get people out to vote, because it is a numbers game and it will have to be a communication game in order to get that done.
I came to this race specifically because I believe I can beat this specific incumbent, and partly I believe that based on what I know about the data of who these voters are and why some of these voters are voting Republican. Furthermore, I have studied the language barriers between the conservative and the liberal voter, and I know that I can deliver Republican votes. I know that from talking for a year and a half to Republicans, specifically out in the field, I know that a lot of them don't even think that Vicki Hartzler has even brought anything to the table. I'm reminding them of Ike Skelton. I'm reminding them of getting a hardworking Democrat back in that seat. I understand why they voted for him. I understand why they voted for her. And I also understand why they're disenchanted with her. I apologize. So I specifically came to this race knowing that, and I'm also very tough about calling her out on stuff. So as an example, I was on the radio just this last Thursday in Warrensburg talking specifically about these tariffs, talking specifically about losing our #1 export customer for soybeans in China. The things that keep farmers up at night are the economics of farming, the business of farming, and I understand that very well. I understand the rising price or the falling prices that they face and the rising cost of doing business that they face, and I'm speaking that language to both them and business owners to get their votes.
Would either candidate support legislation to abolish ICE? You're first on this one.
Well, as I mentioned, I need to be able to appeal across parties to win this race, and I think that it's one of the reasons I've been very specific about my messaging. To be perfectly honest with you, what's going on the border is no less than terrorism, and even more upsetting is the fact that there was no reunification plan put in place for these kids and these parents. And what's even more upsetting than that is our government, our military, our country has the ability to easily and for free keep track of these kids and these families. It's an iris scan. That's it. It would have been so easy. We've got the software and the technology. So this is one of the absolute worst things to have happened in the history of our country. And I can talk more about immigration, but as far as ICE itself goes, I would start with, let's revamp them. I would start with, let's start at the top where the problem is in the administration. We have an administration. We've got some stuff rolling downhill into this particular organization. So that is 100% not off the table. It's not something I would lead with right off the bat.
An important part of democracy is being able to criticize systems that exist. So with ICE, this is true. We have an unaccountable agency that is enforcing immigration in this country. It's all the way from local levels of unaccountable police forces to the highest levels of our national government that we have to be able to criticize these systems and change them so they can serve us. Prior to 9/11, we had a department that did not serve enforcement, but served naturalization of citizens that came to this country, that wanted to live here, to build lives here. And we shouldn't have citizens in the United States of America that are afraid, that are scared because of an institution like ICE, or any other institution for that matter. So we have to be critical. We have to do what is right for humankind here. And we have to be sure that these families, of course, are staying together and are building the best lives that they can. And so yes, I do support changing ICE back to what it looked like before. As someone who is younger, I still, of course, realize the extreme importance of these programs, and maybe even more so because, you know, when I hit 60 or 65, it's going to be pretty far into the future. I'll own the fact I'm 28. I'll be 29 in September, and so thinking about the longevity of these programs for folks that are my age and younger is extremely important. And frankly, right now, what we're doing is we're using budget as an excuse to take money away from these very important programs. We're not thinking about people first. And so, I mean, this is something that wouldn't even cross my mind to take away funds to call these entitlement programs, because they are necessary programs for a large proportion of our community. In fact, I would argue most of us will come to need at least one of these programs. And so we have to support this. This has to be at the top of the priority list, and I'm happy to say that I will do that.
Well, I just want to say thank you, first of all, because I'm 51 years old. And I'm not feeling that young, so I appreciate that very much. No, you know, it's interesting that you asked that question, because my campaign, actually, we have had a debate internally about using the word entitlements with regard to Medicare, and I said there's just too much weight on that word anymore, and so we can't use it, because I'm very sensitive to the fact that, as you said, you have paid into this, I have paid into this, we've all paid into it. We need to be expanding Medicare. Quite frankly, we need to expand Medicare. We need to lower the age of Medicare until everyone has coverage. And that is exactly what I intend to fight for in Congress. I am 100% committed to making sure that our commitments to our seniors and our veterans both are kept. That is very important to me. You know, what's on the floor of the House right now, we have cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security to the tune of about $500 billion for Medicare, $800 billion for Medicaid, and then a smaller amount for Social Security. But as soon as they steal the surplus, they'll tell you that it's bankrupt and, you know, we need to privatize it. So, and we can get into all that as well. But yes, you have my commitment. I will stand and fight for Medicare. I will also stand and fight to ensure that we can have a healthcare system where everyone has coverage. There's a lot of great stuff about Medicare, and everyone should have it.
Oh, during the general election, okay.
Is it my turn first?
It is your turn first.
Okay.
Well, I mean, a couple of things there. I am already asking her to debate me. I have been doing that for a while, and I will continue to do it. And one of the things that we're going to be doing right after the primary is we're going to be actively seeking out the media and asking them to have her come and debate, because it's, you know, it by myself is probably not going to be very likely, but when we have Rudy here ask her for a debate, maybe that will get it. Rudy, KOMU, you know, Cass County Journal. I mean, whatever we need to do there. I mean, two things. One is I am very committed, and this is one of the things I hear about her all the time, is how unavailable she is. She doesn't feel that she represents the Missourians in D.C. She feels she represents her party in D.C. I mean, she's actually said that, for goodness sake. A representative is supposed to represent the constituents, and so when I'm in D.C., I will be available to you even while I'm there. I'll be doing Facebook Live. I want to hear what you think about the things that I face in voting. I want to hear what you think about legislation that's been put forward on the floor. We're also working on some technology to create more of a forum where you can access information more easily. I'll be doing Facebook Live from DC so that, again, we can communicate. And then once I'm here, I will be doing at least one town hall per month, whether I'm in session or here, somewhere out in the district, because being a representative, that's what that means to me.
So Renee and I both saw Vicki earlier this week down in St. Clair County in Osceola. There was a Farm Bureau forum, and she came out to that because it was probably going to be a friendly crowd. It was great to see her out in the district. Hadn't seen her hardly before this week and last week on the campaign trail. She does go to some things, but she selects those things really carefully. She wants to have a friendly crowd. She wants to have the right questions. E-town halls make it easy to do that as well. And I think anyone who's representing this district not only has to be unafraid to answer the hard questions, because those questions are there for a reason. They're there because people are truly concerned, have this perspective. And sometimes what you can do is you can teach someone what maybe the real background for that is. It's opportunity to communicate two ways, right? To learn from constituents, but also to have a conversation with folks that live out there in the district. So these debates are extremely important in bringing forth the nuance in issues. They're also extremely important to showing that, yes, Democrats are here, we're running, we think the 4th Congressional District is extremely important and that it's worth fighting for. And inviting Vicki to the table to show the contrast between our ideas is even more important. And so we absolutely do have to do that, and we'll try all that we can to make that happen now or in the general. Thanks.
Did you both hear that clearly?
Yes. So she's asking about how fundraising is going, if we think we'll have enough funds to carry out a campaign against Hartzler. And I'll be perfectly honest with all of you, it is hard to raise money, especially as the second candidate out. There are a lot of folks that don't necessarily want to donate in a primary, want to wait until the general, so there are definitely pools out there of normal Democratic donors that haven't yet come in and donated, and so I am collecting pledges. If I do, in fact, win the primary, there will be several pledges out there ready to go on August 8th. But it has been very difficult as someone who is younger, has a family that doesn't have a ton of money. Startup funds, the friends and family money, as you call it when you start a campaign, has been very difficult. And to be perfectly frank, getting out in January, things were slow moving, but we are making the most of what we have. And I do think that more than ever, campaigns are not just about money. We've been proving that this year, frankly, on a national scale, is that with a certain amount of money, if used the right way, if leveraged through good volunteers and campaign staff, we can do more with less. And so I think there are other questions we need to be asking in addition to that, and those are approaches that I intend to use.
Well, my campaign has a lot of grassroots support. We have had over 2,300 people donate to this campaign. So I'm actually collecting money. We have had $230,000 come into the campaign since we started. So it's a tremendous showing of grassroots support. I started at zero, and now we've raised that much through donations on average of $65. So I would disagree that I think that at this point in time, in this playing field, that measurement is commensurate with exactly the amount of support that is out there for the campaign. I mean, we have had just a tremendous amount of grassroots support, and I feel that in my social media. I feel that when I go into a crowd. I know that it's there and it's palpable. People are getting very excited about it. Will it be enough for Hartzler? Because Hartzler, here's the thing about Hartzler's war chest: half of her money comes from PAC money. She's got Koch money, she's got NRA money, and the other half, well, the other 45% are big donors. Couples who can write $10,800 checks, 45% of that money. She has less than 5% that are small donors like me, whereas I have 100% small donors. And at the end of the day, even though she's got 5 times as much money, I have 5 times as many donors. And I think that's what's going to carry us. We have that many people invested in this candidacy. We have that many people that believe enough in what we're doing to put their money there. And by the way, I want to say thank you, because a lot of you are in this room right now. She's asking the strategy for beating Vicki Hartzler, like the methodology. The methodology. Okay. The thing about, Wait, Leslie, are you timing me?
Well, I didn't time you while you were reading.
Okay. The thing about Vicki Hartzler is she has the name awareness. And in my experience, talking with people out in this district, some of them are aware that she votes against them, but more are not aware of it. And so they'll say things like, I actually had this said to me, well, I think she's doing a pretty good job, isn't she? I said, well, tell me about that. Well, I guess she does just smile a lot and shake hands. I say, yeah. So my strategy, in short, is to make sure that people know my name before November, so that they can go into that booth and say, okay, I've at least seen that name before. I mean, she doesn't look like she's going to hurt my kids, whatever it is. I mean, and hopefully give them actually an opportunity to find out about me so that they'll know that I have their best interests at heart. They'll know that and believe that already. So that's my goal, is that name recognition. That's why I have those really big billboards up and 75 signs that have my face on them. So sorry about all the face in your face. But the other thing is, and we debated this early on too. I mean, this is partly why I started the campaign in March of 17. But the idea that are we going to be a campaign that never says a word about her, or are we going to be a campaign that tells the truth about her? And we've decided that, or what I've decided is that the only way that I can get them to fire her is to give them a reason to fire her. And so I'm doing the best I can in a way that's not personal, of course, to let them know how she's voting against them as human beings.
I have no illusions about how difficult beating Vicki Hartzler is going to be. She has name recognition all across the district. And as Renee was saying, we can use that name recognition against her. We can talk about what she has and hasn't done. We can talk about her undo list that she was elected on, and what kind of impact that has had and will have on the 4th Congressional District voters. I also think it's really important, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but in any Democratic strategy, we have to be getting people out to vote that haven't been voting, and there are a lot of them, close to the tune of 200,000. Getting those people out to vote could completely turn the outcome of this election. And so one of the strategies, of course, is doing that and getting out there in rural areas and telling people that, hey, Democrats exist, they're knocking on your door, they're your neighbors, and you can work together, you can build coalitions here, and to get that sort of support in places that are not Boone County and Cass County, where a lot of the votes come from, will be important not only for this election, but all elections going forward, for the important presidential election we have coming up. And so those are a couple of strategies, and in a minute and a half, it's hard to talk about everything.
Or your constituents' beliefs, and how are you going to come back to us in 2 years and say, and tell us how you made those decisions? Okay.
Thank you for the fantastic question. I think it's important to use evidence. I'm a plant biologist, scientist by training, so of course gathering as much evidence about how past policies have worked and how we expect future policies to work for communities. That will be an important way to make decisions, but obviously something that's also important to both of us, since we're here, is listening to constituents, having conversations with constituents, and using stories from folks out in the district, investigating those and figuring out what's going on when working on new policy areas in particular, or very challenging areas for this district. So justifying through those two methods in particular is my priority.
If you've heard me speak at all in this last year and a half, you know me, you know what I'm about. I'm about people first. I'm about what do we have, what are we facing, and who does it benefit, and does it benefit the people in Missouri for? And I've said on the trail to Republicans and conservatives and of all of us, if there is someone, if there's an elected official that has legislation that's bad for the people, I will absolutely fight with them. And if there is someone who has legislation that's good for the people, I will work with them. We've got to get the chaos out of Congress, and we've got to work across the aisle to get some things done for the people. One of my main platforms is campaign finance reform. You were asking about big donors. We need to get the money out of our elections. We need to get the power out of the lobbying hands. And we need to get the voters actually choosing their representatives again. And the other thing I just want to say is when I come back here in 2 years, you will have talked to me probably 24 times. So you'll already know. Because I'm not just leaving and coming back a couple of years later. I'm going to be with you. You're going to be sick of me. I just want to say unequivocally that I am 100% pro-choice. And that is exactly how I will vote in Congress. I think that it's very clear that there are some wedge issues that are used to manipulate voters, and this is certainly one of them. Guns and immigration are immigration, of course, is the new wedge issue. And you bring up a really good point, and I wanted to mention this earlier, but I think this is literally one of the most important elections in the history of our country. And I think we need to be very careful about who we send to this fight. Because, I know myself, I know why I'm here, I know the tenacity and the toughness that I bring to this. I am completely intrepid, and I really believe I am our best choice to fight for all of us. And that includes women's health, it includes all of the issues that come on the floor that basically jeopardize people. And we've seen it over and over again. I mean, there are so many examples of the way some of these politicians manipulate the message. And we've got to be straight shooters. I mean, Jason Kander said, you've got to just say what you think. And if people will know you care, and they might support you anyway. So I'm just telling you, I will protect women's privacy. I will protect their rights. I will protect their jurisdiction over their own bodies. And I'm a Catholic person. I don't even like abortion. Nobody really likes abortion, right? But each of us have the individual right to choose what happens to their own body.
I am unabashedly pro-choice. You can find pictures of me on my social media wearing a pink Planned Parenthood shirt, standing on Providence Road outside of the facility here in Columbia with my grandmother. Because it's important that we protect humans' bodily autonomy, women's ability to access contraception and abortions. This is extremely important, and it is going to be a fight. It's going to be something that we have to take someone that this is a priority for. And contraception was affordable when I was a college student because of Planned Parenthood. And so all of these levels of women's choice, of humans' choice, and their bodies are extremely important, especially now with the changes in the Supreme Court. And I will be there fighting for you, fighting for me, and fighting for all of us. I like your quantitative approach to this question.
Rough estimate.
Yeah, I know. This is one of the hard parts about campaigning. I mean, seriously. Looking at how many people you talk to every day, which is hopefully as many as you possibly physically can as a human being. I mean, that's the goal. I don't know the answer to this, but I will tell you what. I no longer have a social life. When I go to First Fridays here in Columbia, I hand out my flyers and I talk to people about what I care about and that I'm running, and I get my friends to do the same. In fact, I try to get them to join the campaign. And I think that just trying to talk to as many people as possible and noting where those good events are is something that's extremely important, and I'm trying to do along the campaign trail. So in the future, we know where we can meet people, where we can have these conversations, where we can learn things. And a few weeks ago now, I think it was about a month ago, I did a round district tour of the counties that are a little harder to get to from here in Columbia. I visited 13 of them, and I didn't come home the whole time. And I met a lot of people along the way. Many of them were supporters, many of them were Democrats, and many of them weren't that involved in politics. And probably per day, meeting a few hundred folks out there in the district and trying to get into places in cities that are coffee shops and other areas where word spreads. Because I know how a small town works.
Well, as you know, I've been running for a year and a half now, and I can tell you it is very difficult to quantify exactly how many people because there have been so many. But I can tell you that I've done over 300 events. I can tell you that I've done over 40 radio interviews. I've been on television maybe 10 times. I've been in I don't even know how many newspapers. my campaign, we've built a fantastic campaign. We have a whole staff of people, we have an office, I mean, we are operational. And just to give you an example, you know, I have also visited every single county several times and done several different tours. In June in particular, I was thinking about this, but there were 3 weekends where I was personally at 7 events each weekend, and my campaign covered an additional 3 festivals out in the district. So we are, it is so hard to tell you a number because we are so out there. I mean, we have a really good footprint. Actually, public education is one of my main platforms, and I 100% see the problems with having an underfunded public education system, and there's also several reasons why those public education systems are really important, not just to our families and our future, which is true, but also to the economy of our rural communities, really. I mean, when you think about a public school system being a foundational employer in some of these rural counties, when you think about what would happen if they went away or were underfunded, I mean, you would literally be losing people. We have teachers, many teachers, who have to work second jobs just to get by. I mean, we need to be focused on wages. That's one of my main platforms, making sure everybody has a living wage that's working 40 hours a week, and making sure that our schools have what they need for the future of our kids and our current economy. The other thing is when a rural community is struggling economically, those public schools are critical to bringing in new business, other professionals or doctors, because if a spouse says, we're not going there because the schools are terrible, well, you've now lost that doctor, or you've lost that lawyer, or that new business. So there's many, many reasons that public school systems are critically important, and I mean, you know, just for all of those obvious reasons.
So as an educator, someone who's been in the classroom here at the University of Missouri, this is definitely one of my priorities. As I highlighted earlier, education is something all the way from pre-K to whatever level of education that you need for your desired job, for your desired career, that we have to support as a society. When I first announced in January, the first thing I did was I went back to High Point, Missouri, where I went to elementary school, and I visited with folks there, and they happened to be having their science fair. I got lucky enough to be able to go into that gymnasium that I remember looking a whole lot different. And talking to those brilliant students, all of which had these surprising and fascinating science projects. But I also got to talk to the teachers. I thought I would remember some because it wasn't that too terrible long ago I was in High Point. I didn't remember any of the teachers. And this is one of the problems. We have a lot of issues with teacher turnover, being able to retain the best, being able to recruit the best for all of our important districts. And, you know, something that I have a lot of friends that want to go back and do is to teach, and they aren't, because we don't pay enough and we don't support our teachers enough, and so this has to be a priority. Thank you for your question.
I just want to thank all of you for your good questions. I want to thank the candidates for their excellent performance, and I want to beseech everyone that after the primary, we all need to coalesce around whichever candidate wins. Yes. And fire Vicki Hartzler.
Yes. Okay, so quickly, one thing we didn't talk about that I hoped we were going to talk about was campaign finance reform as a question, because that is something that I have been struggling with throughout this whole campaign. As someone, again, that has had trouble fundraising, the privilege that goes into campaigns, the type of candidates we have, and the support that we have of those candidates has become more and more evident to me. And I support public campaign financing. We have to fund our campaigns publicly in order to get the kind of candidates that we need. We need candidates from all walks of life, backgrounds, ideas, and that's how we get the best public policy, is by having those diverse candidates. And so I would support a proposal to fund campaigns federally from public funds. Now, I want to say a couple other things. Of course, I support education, I support scientific funding for research, and I support evidence-based policymaking. But I want to end with, I don't just want to represent Missouri's 4th Congressional District. I already do. I represent Missouri's 4th Congressional District because I grew up here. I've lived here my whole life, all the way from fishing at Stockton to getting an education here in Columbia, Missouri, from the lab to the classroom to my childhood at High Point. I represent Missouri's 4th Congressional District, and I want to serve all of you.
I guess I would invite you to consider what it is that makes a good representative. What is it that we're doing here? What is it that we're judging us on? Are we voting for who's most congenial? Are we voting for who's the toughest? Are we voting for who has the most experience? I mean, I think that that's something that we can ask ourselves. I mean, there's two things going on. We've got to pick the person we think most likely to beat Vicki Hartzler, and we've got to pick the person that we think is equipped enough to fight for us in Congress. And I can tell you for myself, and anyone that knows me will tell you, I am absolutely tough as nails, tenacious, but yet fair, and I'm ready to go. I am quick on my feet, and Shemin over there, she's smiling. And I truly believe in my heart of hearts that I'm the best candidate, and I hope that you do too. I hope that you see that as well, and I really appreciate your vote on August 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.